Welcome back, everyone. Wildcat Fanalytics. He's Mike. I'm Jesse. We're coming at you on what is this? A Thursday, November 7th, following the opening regular season of contest, Arizona Canisius.
Yeah.
Mike, what are you sitting with today in the world of Arizona basketball that as kind of a just a general reflection on the game, if you were to give it
Cool.
words?
Cool to see some live ammo, like live ammo reps is cool. Obviously Tommy was fiddling with a lot of stuff. Uh I like that, right? I like that we're kind of, I don't want to say not taking it too seriously, but not just like saying, "Hey, look, I know what we're doing this year and we're just gonna do this based on what we practiced." It's like, okay, what if we hedge every ball really aggressively with as often as possible. Obviously, we're not going to do that every game, what if we do platoon lineups and just like, what does this, random lineup look like? It's unlikely that we're going to see that every game, but it's really good game film. It's cool to have an open mind, to see a coach have an open mind like that. And I think the fans should probably temper expectations until we get into some tougher battles. That's my expectation. That's my feel.
Nice. We're going to jump into ball screen breakdowns, ball screen coverage breakdowns, and highlight a Wildcat Fanalytic request of the week. Let's
Mm,
start. Let's start with the Bear Down Awards.
yeah.
You going with a
Um,
player this week or a theme? What suits you?
I'm gonna go with a theme. I'm gonna go with a theme. I'm gonna go with Rim and Three as my theme. If you, I don't know if we internalized it while watching it, but man, looking back at the numbers, everything we did was Rim and Three. 95% of our field goal attempts were either at the rim or almost entirely catch and shoot, like almost entirely assisted threes.
Mm.
It's incredible to see the numbers. That's super, super efficient offense. There was just like a couple of 2-point jumpers, just a handful of, kind of dribble threes, a lot of catch and shoot, a lot of stuff at the rim. It's not going to exist in every game. These guys, weren't able to defend us really, but the emphasis on efficiency is there, and the team is executing it. So it's super cool.
Mm. Yeah, I'm picturing Jaden Bradley and his insistence on getting to the rim, and
Yeah.
and I'm having to remind myself of last year where the default was more pull up three
Mm,
and less getting into the lane. And I love the reliability overall on a 1,000 possession season. I love the idea of trading some of those pull up threes for getting in the lane and either finding somebody or getting fouled or getting a shot. And so
yeah.
like I go back and forth. I'm gonna give it to I'm gonna give it to KJ because we spent a lot of time talking about Bradley and
Yeah.
he was awesome and he has been awesome. And I am so excited
So
about
excited.
his development. KJ Lewis deserves, in my book, a ton of credit. He is playing for the win so far, 3 for 3. I think he took 8 shots. He was 100% at the rim. He made an open three. He didn't force anything. He's all over the place. He's grabbing boards. He's making outlet passes. He's playing for the win in an era where players in his position, as we've noted, will just be so easily enticed to play for
Yeah.
themselves. And I just hope it continues because he is a breath of fresh air. He is so high IQ, such a baller. And
Yeah.
so we'll get into it more, but I love Jaden Bradley. I'm so excited. I think having a point guard who is this good at getting to the lane, I would take that over a point guard who, every fifth game can go 5 out of 8 from three. Because he's not going to be that guy. But like the biggest thing about Jaden Bradley to me was I think he went 1 for 4 from three. He didn't shoot well, but
Yeah.
he was 6 for 7 from two, and had like I think he had 4 steals and no turnovers.
Yeah.
Maybe one turnover.
It's how great is it to have 1, 2, 3?
Yeah,
Jaden, KJ, and Caleb have looked fantastic. I mean, those guys have just looked like you'd struggle to trade them for anybody out there. Now it's early, it's super early, but they've looked really good.
I think they're helping me make sense of how volatile last season was because because the way that the that Love and Boswell played, it really messed with our floor. It could like
Mm,
bottom could drop out
yeah.
metaphorically and, probability wise. And I think the way we're approaching it with maybe it's these players, the scheme, the growth, the maturity, whatever, Lloyd's, learning, whatever it is, this to me feels so much more solid as a
Hmm.
baseline. Yeah, maybe you're not going to have those like Oregon halves where Boswell was a video game, and then at Oregon when Love was a video game. I would trade that for just being solid. And I think it keeps you in more games and it ultimately gets you further.
You know what I think of fantasy football. If you play fantasy football, I'm sure people out there do.
Oh, yeah.
There's a thing, or you can think about football in general, about having the run game
Yeah.
and being able to bruise and enforce your will in the trenches. And so, fantasy football is sort of similar, where if you have running backs and they just consistently produce, you may not have the home run, hey, I'm going to score a trillion points and blow somebody out, but you're probably always in the game. And then as long as you do have a couple of home run hitters, you do have a couple of wideouts that can go deep and stretch the field. That can be an exceptionally dangerous offense because it's like you said, the floor is so high. I see that. I see KJ and Jaden and new look Caleb coming off 2 feet in the paint
Mm,
as that really like tough running game
yeah.
where it's you're just and then you add in the front court and they look fantastic in their own right in various ways. It feels like it's just a grind, I bet, to battle these guys and keep them off the rim every game, I bet.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, isn't it, isn't it sort of say a lot about our culture that even in a sports podcast, we have to use other sports for our analogy? Like
I'm just
Lloyd
I
uses the body blow, the boxing metaphor
yeah,
with fouls, foul,
yeah.
which we're going to talk about. Let's get it. Let's jump to our Wildcat Fanalytic fan request of the week, coming from Dogfather 97 off the Wildcat Authority board.
Shout
Pre-
out.
Appreciate the challenge. I didn't write down the quote, but it was essentially, how can this team best utilize Anthony Dell'Orso? And Dell'Orso's been, a topic of great anticipation since his signing. I would say maybe polarization. And so we're going to really
Recent polarization,
recent
certainly.
polarization on his start of the season. So where would you like to start with him? And then, bear with us if you're watching. I'm going to try to do some on the fly production with video, and Mike's going to hopefully lead us.
Yeah, so let's give the background that Dell'Orso over the last 3 games, right? It's 2 exhibitions and one real game, and none of these have been great competition. Hasn't played really well. Now that's not he hasn't been as productive. He hasn't scored as well as you'd hope, as well as my expectation is, or his historical scoring, right? That isn't the same thing as he's not a good player, or he's not skilled, or he can't play at this level. Obviously, we're playing at a level below what he used to play at, so right now, and so it's not like there's some bump in competition that's forcing him to play poorly, and it's not as though he's doing the wrong thing. And I think that's maybe what you've got a fair amount of tape on is that you can see him do a lot of smart things that maybe just don't result in an assist or a made bucket, right? So I think. Um, I think the best is yet to come for Dell'Orso as he attempts to find his spot within the offense. That I don't know what you've. I mean, what do you want to see queued up out of?
My hundreds of clips.
I
Yeah,
know
we'll
because I
we'll
know you have some stuff that you
I have some
thought, well,
stuff.
gosh,
Yeah.
it people missed the good things he did. I think that was your thesis, right?
Well, I don't want to go too far. I don't want to presume what people missed or not, but I was looking for, I guess where I come from, and this is college basketball where you obviously can't trade players.
Yeah,
Somebody's a free agent acquisition. You can't just like, bench him or put him on the injured reserve and then call up someone from the minors or the G League. And
yeah,
so my bias is to really frame the potential because these are the guys we're riding with, like it or not.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think it's fair. I think we all see some of the same concerns about, any player, but certainly Dell'Orso, who's been touted by some, that will go
Who?
nameless. Uh, prop betting aside. So I think what I'm looking for is, trusting the intelligence of our audience that to understand that this is not an apology or an affirmation of anything other than just like if we were to look at step back and look at, well, what is really defining how somebody fits in. So I remember Ben Matherin in the first few games.
Yeah.
He really struggled to find his groove in the offense. And last year, Jaden Bradley, and we talked about it at the same time last year, we were like, hey, I can see Bradley has a role. He's just not quite there. And I speak to this a lot in my background in developmental psych. I'm not so sure it's the level of competition that is currently the problem for Dell'Orso. I think it's just simply what these other two players went through. When you are a cerebral player and
Yeah.
you're introduced to a system whose structure allows for fluid and multiple decisions by every player, I imagine, and again, I don't know, Dell'Orso could be an absolute failure.
Totally.
But I imagine that what could be happening is a guy of his sort of basketball knowledge and skill set is still trying to find the second natureness of this offense,
Yeah.
much like Matherin looked and Bradley looked. No, I don't think he's as talented as those guys
Sure.
athletically. We can sort of like, caveat all that. Um, but I would say like even if you look at the highlights of the last game, most of the shots that he took were independent of competition. Like he can make those,
Yeah.
but he's
Yeah.
not, you've well covered his statistical efficiency. We're not talking about going in and getting swatted. That I think that that's a concern of mine. But if he finds where he can get shots off, he can shoot the ball. And
Yeah.
so you will see in some of these clips, what I wonder about is he just not quite to that second nature comfort, which it's really hard to make shots. We saw it with Bradley last year. Remember, he kept like missing the pull-ups and in the
Yeah.
lane, just roll out. It's just
Yep.
that little bit of comfort where the brain is trying to think too hard or the executive functioning is still running it instead of that second nature, like body sense.
And it's what we argue about why we want to see various ball screen coverages and just defensive schemes, right? So we can force the opposition to be in that same space
Yeah.
where it's instinctive, where the synapses aren't just boop boop and the ball is in, where it's boop, pause, boop, and that pause is what allows you to force back, force misses really, even off of good looks. And I think that he has that pause right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just really hard to play basketball when you're coming from that place. And that's why I'm trying to find it. I'm in the wrong highlight. That's why like I think the sort of like the relics of military strategy were created.
Hmm.
A hierarchy of thinking was created because soldiers in World War I, World War II, Vietnam, they they didn't want people to think too much and improvise because you weren't in a space where that was going to work well. Like
Bullets are
you're fight or
flying. You don't
flight.
have time. Yeah.
And so, like that sort of chain of command leaked its way into athletics. And you could see folks like Bobby Knight and Sean Miller, like this type of authoritarian basketball can help limit the mistakes people make because they don't have as many choices.
Right.
And so, like, Tommy Lloyd's coming from a different end of the philosophical spectrum where he says, actually, I want to empower my guys to make decisions because I think those decisions, when you get basketball players with certain skill sets and confidence and connectedness, can be the hardest to play against. We've seen this,
100%.
I think, like vintage Golden State. You
Hmm.
could see some of their offense, and it's like, that's poetry almost.
Yeah. The vintage Spurs,
Yeah,
right?
vintage
Similar. Yeah.
Spurs. It's
It was
not a
like,
calculated script where it's like either you run it exactly as the coach teaches it, and they're brilliant coaches that are tacticians. So then
exactly.
when you're in that authoritarian construct, like a Knight or some of these old school guys, you have brilliant tacticians, and so
Right.
you could out tactic the other team, and as long as your team ran the set to
They
perfection,
execute. Yeah.
And that's what it depends on. But if they get out of script, they're not going to have a lot of resource to empower themselves, right? So Tommy's trying to walk this kind of Lute Olson, Roy Williams, um, Steve Kerr kind of new age model where you have just enough structure for the players to then improvise. It's like, here's the time signature and here's the key. I always go back to music.
Mm.
I wish I could use a football one. You
We've
know,
used a lot of metaphors. I'm
we
loving
jump around,
this.
right? We're already just starting. So like, here's the enough structure so that you can find your way into the decisions, and that's going to land differently for different people. So I just see Dell'Orso like probably seeing more possibility than his brain can keep up with at the moment. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean I think he's going to figure it out and become, a ceiling raiser. I do think he can score the ball and facilitate. And if I can actually find my highlights while Mike is hopefully riffing, I will
Yeah, let's
do
let,
that.
let
Yeah.
let's maintain the music metaphor. And
Okay.
it's like he went from a choir to a jazz group or something, where it was like everything was fairly well structured, and you knew, when to hit your beat, and then it's, it's like he's of the skill to where, he can do that. Like he
You
can
do it,
jump
but
in
it's
and be a part of that.
going to be an
It's
adjustment.
just it's just like, oh my God, like, hey guys, I haven't been doing jazz recently, so
But
like,
you know what
let
I
me
was
find my spot.
this is perfect synchronicity. I was thinking about it the other day. It's almost like he was the lead guitarist in a Led Zeppelin tribute band,
Sure.
and now he's playing for Led Zeppelin. And you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah,
he can do it, but it's sort
yeah.
of like, oh, now it's at this real like embodied layer. It's not just like I'm covering someone's songs and I'm a virtuoso,
Right.
but now I'm actually in the band. So
Yeah. Living the music kind of thing. Yeah, yeah, I like it.
oh, I just want to. This is really quick. This is his baseline jumper the other night that sort of rolled
Hmm.
out, and again, like he beats the guy off the dribble, and
Yeah, I like
this is a
this.
shot he can make. This is an easy
Hmm.
shot, and you can just tell me if you see just the micro hesitation that I see. Yeah,
Yeah, right there.
pump fakes, and it's
With the
like,
little,
yeah,
yeah.
does he
And then
pump fake?
and he pump fakes a little and then leans a little, and it ends up being offline, right? Um, and it's not like that guy is a guy who is going to swat him, like you said.
Yeah, I think
I
that's
think,
confidence. Yeah,
yeah, and well, and he's being doubled right there, although it's not a real double, but he's drawn two defenders.
yeah,
And so there is a thought, I'm sure, as he's in this offense where he's thinking, I've drawn two defenders. Like I'm part of a team now. I'm no longer, A1 and A, 1A and 1B, scoring for my team.
right.
So playing within that offense, like that's the rule of playing within this offense of being a good teammate, right? Is that if you pass up a good look for a great look, if you've drawn two defenders, there probably is a better look out there. And so I imagine, there's some of that, old habit of, if I have an open shot, I need to take it versus because who else will?
Yeah.
Campbell versus the new thing of, oh my gosh, actually, I'm in Led Zeppelin. These other players, these other, folks in the band are actually really good at this too.
Yeah,
I
maybe
should hand it off.
maybe Bonham's going to take a solo or Robert.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he's the and there's something really easy about knowing that you're the guy, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's
He's
that
now playing
there.
rhythm. He's now playing rhythm guitar, right?
Something
And
about like a clear hierarchy that can really
yeah.
help actually liberate. It's sort of like we're talking about the military hierarchy. It was a really narrow breadth of improvisation. But I think he's finding his way in the hierarchy, and I think that's part of, again, he could be a total bust. I don't think he is, but he could be. I think that's part of what you're seeing is
Hmm.
he's just trying to get himself in sync with his hierarchy and his decision making. And here's another one that I thought this is a baseline drive. You know, I think he can make this. He beats the guy again.
Oh yeah, he's got it. He already had it.
You just got to make that. And I think,
Yeah.
if he makes that shot, which I'm sure he does 80% of the time. Look, he beats the guy again off the dribble, one step. So some nice athleticism. He beats the
Yeah.
pump fake.
He's well past them, and
Yeah.
maybe it's because he's been practicing against KJ Lewis that he thought he couldn't just take that layup right there. He thought
Right.
KJ would have been 3 feet above him by the time he tried to get that off. But yeah,
Right.
it's just jitters, hesitation, this isn't the kind of stuff that is insurmountable. I said that on the Wildcat Authority board. This is the kind of stuff you would expect and sort of hope for if you're thinking about hoping for a problem, because it's just fixed with time and reps,
Yeah.
right? It's not a skill issue, or a lack of athleticism or size issue. We did just see him beat his man off the dribble. Now, like you said, he's not a Dalen Terry or some sort of freak
Ben
athlete
Mather.
by
Right.
any means,
Yeah.
but he's to my eyes and to a lot of people, he's got plenty of athleticism to play here. So I expect to see as he finds his. Oh, that's really nice.
Another one. So on the run from Carter, great cross court pass from Carter Bryant.
Yeah,
Take it to the
immediately.
rim. Look, I think that's like, is this a layup? Is this a floater? I think that's part of his just indecision. But
Yeah,
look, those three
little
shots,
bank off the glass might have been
sure.
nice,
Like
but whatever. Yeah.
it's just like discomfort. He looks uncomfortable. And I think if you make those three shots and you're 4 for 10 with four free throws, um, people probably aren't having the same reaction. So all I wanted to show those for is not to make some argument about Dell'Orso being the savior, but to say
No, no.
those misses right there, and there may have been one or two more. Those are not because he can't play at this level or play the competition. Those are just missed shots. I'm hypothesizing about, comfort and adjustment. Who even knows what he
Yeah.
only he would know. But those shots he can make, I'm sure he's made those dozens of times in games, probably
Yeah,
against
against better
better
competition.
competition.
Yeah.
But let's not jump to characterological proclamations based on those things. We can maybe make some based on other things if you need to, but not because of that.
Yeah, or else you're tossing out, young Ben Matherin and young Jaden Bradley and plenty of other players that arrived here. I mean, Azuolas Tubelis in his first couple of games under Tommy did not look good. Same as Ben.
Yeah,
Those two guys didn't look good. Tommy had to adjust the offense in order to make sure that he was including them more explicitly, kind of dumb it down for them in a way.
yeah.
Um, because it's not second nature to play in this offense. And that's what part of what he said when he was talking about, hey, look, we've got three guards who are starting that have been in this offense a year. That's like having seniors, who've been in here 4 years, given, the lack of continuity that we're dealing with in college basketball. I think that's especially so for this version of an offense where you are, it's not rote, this isn't memorization. It's flow, and getting into a flow takes time.
And I would imagine my limited high school level experience of basketball, which was very archaic in our structural aspirations. This is not an offense in which you have time to think. And so you've got a cerebral player who's thinking his way through it because he's not
Yeah.
got it. And so it's not football where you get to 45 seconds and you can look at the playbook and you sort of take a breath. This is like, this is why players sort of like again, to the musician example, this is
Hmm.
why like there are brilliant musicians who don't know the notes in a scale or the mode
Right.
or the keys. You don't need to know that to be brilliant at what you do. You don't even, there are players in basketball who probably don't even know what a ghost screen is. They don't know what you call it. They have the intuition, they have the kinesthetic trust that they know what they're doing. And I think Delhi is trying to go top down. He is
Yeah.
really cerebral. He's a student of the game. He's like Mike Defoe. And
Mm.
he's trying to absorb from the intellectual plane down into the kinesthetic. And I think this is part of what we're seeing. Again, when he arrives there, I don't expect him to start scoring 18 a game. I'm just saying I think you'll see like where his skills and strengths can apply. And so I think let's take a look at a couple clips of where he can't. The question is, how can you use him best? I think so far we've seen he understands the offense. He can be a post entry guy. He can make decisions. Um, Talk about this play where he's at least making a jump post
Love
entry.
love this one, and if you keep playing it after this, I'd like to see it as well. So that's where he was trying to get to. He saw the post entry was there. He wanted that to continue and let the is it? I think there's one right after that I really liked
Yeah,
as
no, I
well.
will. Yeah, yeah.
And he and look, sometimes hey, you're taught not to jump. Well, I'm sorry, not to jump and then pass, not to pass with 2 feet in the air, but that was an effective pass in, and it could have been a bucket for him. It could have been a layup from Mo, but I love that Mo. Look at this from Mo. I mean, if you're thinking about the excitement of Mo, he looks like a sophomore right now. Let's just establish that, man. he's knocking off some rust, but man, he looks bigger. He looks more confident. Look at this swing pass to a wide open and nails it, just a laser.
What a yeah, we'll have more to say about Krivas as we go along. He is just a zone magnet. Like
Oh God,
it is
yeah,
rim vortex, and as
soaking
soon
up
as
gravity.
the
Yeah,
well as he can do to hold his ground and fight through that and make passes and shots, like
yeah.
you're going to get positive offense with him on the floor, which was exciting as well. But I think you speak to what your trust is in terms of Dell'Orso really
Uh,
understanding. There's not one right after that actually, but here's the
oh, okay.
way
There,
to
I was looking at it. I was looking at a different set of
different
highlights.
episode.
There was something right after that. There was something I think right after that in the game where
Mm,
um somebody I think went to the line or something, and Dell'Orso, yeah, it was somebody that went to the line, and Dell'Orso was directing the whole team. The whole team that was on the floor, he huddled everybody up.
right.
He was giving guidance to everybody. He was using hand signals because some people use different. I think that's what we're doing. Is that some
Mm,
people and he
mm.
was he was doing like an O thing because so I guess there's different languages being spoken. So obviously, if you work with babies or toddlers, hand signals very useful. Um, and then Conrad came in. He's showing Conrad a hand signal, and so I just thought, God, and I think it was Mo at the line maybe because he went over and he kind of hugged Mo, and after I think Mo maybe missed it, but um, anyway, it just spoke to me of I think he knows. I think the IQ is there. I think he knows what's going on. I think he really, really, really expects himself to be a great player, and so I have a lot of confidence in him still. I think he's kind of just trying to find that role and sort of forcing it.
Yeah, so here's another one where he takes the DHO from Krivas, and this is a play we've seen 100 times
God.
in Arizona, just a fluid pocket pass.
Hmm.
So he reads it, and
Beautiful.
and Krivas misses. But
And,
again, these are the moments where if Krivas makes that, there's a little bit
hmm
of a ripple of our sense of Delhi. We're like, oh, Delhi made that, but he missed it.
Yeah,
It's easy to forget.
and that's Delhi operating as a pick and roll ball handler, which is what my hope was. Like so let's answer the question. What can he be really good at? Well, he can be really good at just catch and shoot three, being a little connector where hey, he sees Mo in the post and he does a little jump pass and then Mo passes it out. That's a good connecting pass.
Let's see if I
We
can
saw it
get.
a couple.
Yeah, let me see
We,
if I can get you one.
we saw it a couple other times in the exhibition games where he wanted to get a post entry, and I think he swung it to maybe Trey, and then Trey swung it inside to Henry or something like that. And,
Here's
um,
one. Yeah, here's one on the DHO series.
mhm.
So the pocket pass wasn't there, but he was able
Yeah,
just to swing it out for the open three.
beautiful.
Mhm.
And so that's just operating within the offense, and that's great. So I have a lot. So can he do that? I think he's going to be if he says, look, I guess I can't. I'm not going to be anything more than just that, and he just established, hey, this is going to be my role for now. I think he'd be just fine at that role. I think he'd be very, very good at it, actually.
Mhm.
The bigger part is could he just be an actual um, playmaking ball handler out of those DHOs and ball screens, and we've seen some evidence, I think, early that he can.
Yeah,
And
here's
I think
another
it's interesting that they're using him in that way when there's
one.
questions of is he even a guard?
Yeah, and the I think the obvious use of him is catch and shoot. I think
Totally.
his catch and shoot three along with Love is maybe the best shot next to
Yeah. He
if
well.
if Krivas can finish better than 65%, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
here's just their offense, and here's going to be instead of a facilitation, I think this is where he's most deadly. Catch and shoot screen and
Just easy.
easy, just
Boom.
easy stuff.
Just gorgeous looking shot. Yeah, and he shot that at 40% last year. That's an excellent number according to Synergy.
Hmm.
So I I think additionally he may benefit as the rotation shrinks a little bit, and it can't shrink that much,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But um, his most of his minutes, there's a lot of different lineups that got played, but most of his minutes this first game, it was Conrad at the one, Delhi at the two, Carter at the three, Toby at the four, Krivas at the five.
yeah.
That how many of those guys, have seen, really meaningful action at Arizona? Conrad a little bit,
Uh,
Mo.
I think I want to see him with KJ and Jaden because those are the two guys
Totally.
who are the highest IQ penetrators. He's
Totally.
complimentary in that line. And here, to your point, here he's with Conrad, Carter, Emmanuel Steffen, and Town.
Yeah.
This is the one we showed last time, but for those who didn't see it, this to me, I'd almost sub him in on almost any out of bounds play under our own basket or on the. So this is a play I'm assuming for him because as we said last time, he points to Carter,
God, I loved this. Yeah.
double screen. We're going to show it again. Um, Steffen's going to screen the ball, and then he's going to go screen Steffen's guy, and then
Yep.
just simple action, but he looks so comfortable.
Really natural.
There's nothing he's that's where he's ready to go.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Straight out of the gates. You know, tear off the seal, put him in.
Yep.
Um,
I'd put him in on every out of bounds play. Because
just
I think
the
because that's where
danger of his spacing
yeah, like
is also
that's where you can actually I mean if you get a 3-point shot on an out of bounds play and play him for one defensive possession, that's a
yeah. Like, why
let's
not?
take him out. Right? I mean, I don't think Tommy, micro manages
Right.
analytics enough to do that, but I think certain possessions you might
If
see sub in on out of bounds plays.
if you're talking about a knife fight against, I don't think it'll be Wisconsin. Hopefully we roll. But if you're talking about a knife fight against a Duke, or if we're in the Bahamas playing a better team like Gonzaga, yeah, like that's the kind of chess moves that you do need to make. And if he's not ready to be sort of his full self yet, deploying him like that in spot situations while utilizing him elsewhere, but really being like, okay, this is where we're grabbing 3 points and that 3 points is a big step for us because of how tight the game is and how little time we have. Cool. That's a great use.
He's almost like a specialist. What help me out in football so I don't get out of
Yeah,
yeah,
he's like a gadget
like
player. He's
like
like
the
a
guys who,
gadget player. Yeah.
like guys who come in and like the
Yeah.
little 5'9" wingback who comes in and
Yeah. Yeah.
take a reverse 20 yards.
Yeah. Yeah, like he's sort of like that Tyson Hill, the tight end for um Taysom Hill for the Saints. He'll be a quarterback. He'll be a tight end. He'll be a running back. You just kind of put him out there, and you don't know what he's going to do, but he's going to get you some points. Anyway, yeah, it could sort of be like that.
There's a lot we could say about Delhi. I'd say let's get into the ball screen coverages
Yeah, let's do it.
because he's been doing stuff that we've been asking for 2 years and to mixed reviews, but I think there's more to it than that. So let me
Yeah.
see if I can cue some up. What what did you see overall, and what do you want to look at here?
Yeah, so historically, let's just refresh everybody. I know everybody knows, but let's say it again. We played a lot of drop coverage between Koloko and Balo, especially Balo, really unable to use any other kind of more aggressive ball screen coverage. Balo is very good at drop coverage, except that does allow for some open dribble jumpers. The ball handler can just walk into it, which we lamented last year often.
People
Um,
are tired of us complaining about that. Yeah.
Totally. But then, to start this year, we're seeing just a ton of aggressive, you can call it blitzing, a little bit of a trapping. So that's, the 5 man, or, the big, just kind of coming up and smothering the ball handler as he's trying to get over his own big that's screening, and then recovering. And now that hasn't been perfect, but I'd much rather see us try those things right now and get tape on them. Like if you're not going rolling it out against Duke for the first time isn't, that's not the time to do it. Like let's see some live ammo reps and see what this looks like. And okay, now we've looked at it on film, and you graciously pointed out what you felt like was the issue there, and it wasn't a walk of trapping. It was, in your opinion, what?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more like the more you gamble in or more aggressive you are, the tighter your rotations have to be.
Exactly.
I just think we haven't gotten, used to the rotations and the connectedness there, and that's going to be big. Like you can't do that stuff. Houston is so great at that because they know exactly where to go and how to cover. And
So,
Canisius made us pay when we were just a step slow. Yeah.
and two things on that. One, I've talked about before playing on a string. I played defense in lacrosse, and there's a lot of similarities, honestly, between lacrosse defense and basketball defense, where you're the ability, having to rotate, knowing when to rotate, where to rotate, having to cover gaps, knowing your length and the spacing, and it's really, really difficult. You have to have continuity, and we don't have a ton of continuity. We're building that continuity right now. And then the second thing is, which is what Houston does. It's not as though It's not as though they're on a string perfectly. At least not, maybe for that first rotation, like that second defensive coverage, right? Hey, the first is the trap. That second is rotating. That first time, it's the third. It's knowing it's that crispness of that second one, and then the third one is oftentimes just a scram where
Right.
it's a couple of guys that are running at one shooter, which can be bad in a way. You don't want to send two guys at one guy, but it's better to do that than to send a guy slow, right? And it's just an open jumper. And so their knowledge of and anxiety for that that next coverage, that next response is elite. And so we need to be making sure that we're building that.
Yeah, and I think the more we practice it, I thought the effort was.
Exactly.
I think what I liked is that I think the drop coverage also is almost like a way to just relax our defense, and it
Sure.
seemed like we were just sort of like, hey, here's what we'll offer, and
Yeah.
then if you miss the shot, we'll get the rebound, and we did a good job of that. But I like that the aggressive coverages puts our defense more on its toes. So this is sort of like more the shallow drop help.
Hmm.
Um, and I think what Tommy pointed out is most teams are not going to do pick and pop with fives, right?
Yeah.
This is a five out. And
Hmm.
so that helped ease my anxiety a little bit. Like I think Kravis does what he can here. He's covering so they can't get in the lane. The point guard turns, he's got the five man. He closes out really well.
Gosh, that's
It make it's
really good closeout for his
really good
size.
closeout. But what are you gonna do, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then the next one, Awaka is again on the pick and pop. So here you're gonna get a ball screen
Hmm.
on Bradley. With Awaka, it's a ghost screen, and then
Mm.
you get this guy, the five man's gonna go do a 45 angle screen.
Hmm.
And Awaka's gonna get a little bit lost. So
Yeah,
so
he does.
is that necessary? Like Bradley was already there.
Yeah, so Walker needs to have his head up that he got that's a ghost screen, right?
Yeah. Right. So
You
that
got
was
to see that your guy just took off, and so trapping the ball handler at this point is totally unnecessary.
so this
In
should
fact, detrimental.
right. Like this should have been his recognition that, oh, it's a fake. Let me
It's a
try.
45 cut, yeah.
Bradley's good. He's in good shape. He doesn't need the help.
And he's a great defender. So what are we doing?
So
And
great job.
and
I
you
mean,
really take Bradley off of the ball for a second,
yeah.
which
And
allows that pass because if Bradley's just blanketing him, maybe he doesn't even get it off.
so this is good. This is good learning because I actually thought we looked some of our best when we just straight up switched and,
Hmm.
and switch with Awaka and even Vasar with certain players. Not so much with Krivas, but you can play a shallow drop with Krivas. You can switch with Townsend. You can switch with Bryant. That almost simplicity. So I liked seeing that he's playing with it. And I know if this were a 2 point game, we'd not be employing that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Not so
but
worth. Yeah.
let's emphasize that, right? Like this is the time for
Right.
us to be toying around, and we want to see mistakes on film
Right.
because look, I mean, hey, I guess we'd love to see it be perfect and believe that if we're just gonna be perfect straight out of the gate and we're perfect forever. The reality is in sports that you generally are iterating and trying to get better, build, improve, and especially with again continuity, the lack of continuity in college basketball, it's a constant learning process. Learning is painful. It takes mistakes and it takes film and review, and I'm glad we have it. Like this is good stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny to hear people freak out that there's bad ball screen coverages and we're doing all this blitzing, and I was just so enthused by it. I had the exact opposite reaction.
I was too. I mean, I wasn't enthused by our execution, but I was
Yeah,
enthused that they're doing it because
yeah.
if they can get better at it, then it's like a pitcher acquiring a new pitch. Let's just use all
Hmm.
metaphors. So
I've
here's
already dropped in lacrosse.
nice. We're gonna see if we can get we got 5 minutes. We'll see if we can get tennis in there. Uh
Okay,
or
I got
golf.
women's field
You're a
hockey
golfer,
teed up.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So here's Henry playing the drop. And I thought this was great example of what you just mentioned, that there's actually the ball screen is not just about the ball screen, it's about
Hmm.
the next move and then the next rotation. And then so I thought we did really nice job on the initial coverage, and then the secondary coverages are slow. So here's Henry. He recognizes it, he drops. So
It's really nice.
Trey does a nice job getting over the top.
And he's and Henry's feet are correct there, where he's forcing him out of the middle, which forces that pass.
But here's the
And that's
Unfortunately,
Dell'Orso having to cover the corner and the
got two
guy.
up.
Yeah. And he should have already rotated.
So if you rotate here early, then
Yeah.
counting on this guy not being able to see this guy.
I mean, he would have whipped it into the corner.
That
These are
guy,
bad.
that guy was
These are
good.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are tough because yeah, you now have one guy covering two 3-point shooters and both in really good spots, right?
I think,
That
yeah.
corner three is really dangerous. What we need to do.
I think what I want to see us do is whatever coverage we make, commit to it. And if you get burned, you get burned. Like, even the Houston on their blitzes, they get burned
Yeah,
because the
they get
roll
burned.
man, if you can find the roll man, then it's a dunk.
Yeah.
Um, so you are selling out, but I think it's like let's sell out with some conviction. And I think what we're not showing is we turned them over 19 times, and several of those were live ball turnovers, and most of those were because of aggressive ball screen defense where they got
Hmm.
really rattled.
Really rattled,
Yeah.
and we walked away with. I mean, some of those steals were laughable, right?
Laugh
It's like they were. It was like they were handing off a package. You know, like, did
so
you
over
like this?
and that's what you want, right? Like you want
Yeah.
overwhelm to be such that the opponent can't handle it. And so when they handled it, they got an open shot. They did a nice job shooting. Um, but I'll tell you, from my recollection, I think they only made four, maybe five field goals in the paint. And
Mm,
I want to say if it's five, three of them I could live with the coverage. I thought they were really well defended, and a couple of them were really tough shots. And two of them were like a fast break layup, but they really weren't getting to the rim.
yeah.
So we did our job, and I think if the ball screen coverages are going to be as effective as our connectedness and what we can look for on Saturday is hopefully if we experiment with some different coverages, do they look more coordinated? Do they look
Hmm.
like the guys in the second and third rotations know what they're doing? It's not so much, let's not judge it as did we give up a three, but did our coverages do the job? Because you're playing. Okay, let's bring in poker. You're playing, like it's not did you lose the hand? Because sometimes you're going to lose hands in poker on a bad
Right.
beat, right? You had pocket kings and you lost to a 3-7 offsuit on a terrible, a terrible draw.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. You
You
could
still made the right play.
right, like you could cover it brilliantly, and somebody throws in a 26-footer defended. That's fine. You can live with that. Over the long haul across the season, that's not going to change your coverage because most of those you're going to win.
Yeah.
What I don't want to see is when we're giving up shots because of confusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that's big for Saturday. That's what we'll be circling. Defensive coverage. Does it look confused? Does it look like they're more connected on those second and third rotations? That's going to be huge for us this season and maximizing our ability to be aggressive in that first one. So that we can't be aggressive in that first one if the second and thirds aren't there, right?
And then
So
we're just back to drop coverage as the
and we're
defense.
back to ultra.
We know. So, the good old standby. And I also want to something we could have made a whole show about that I know people are clamoring for, and I know I'm curious about. Let's see if we can get the rim finishing. Let's see if we can get um, good shots for Townsend, good shots for
Yeah.
Dell'Orso. Continue to attack the rim. Let's work on our free throw rate. Let's see if Krivas can play 15 or 18 minutes and what else he can do in that time.
Hmm.
What else?
Uh, Dell'Orso free throw rate right now 44%. Let's stop the count. This is great. Leave it right there.
Krivas 200. It's a real stat.
Oh my God.
One 10
Good,
minutes
good,
play.
good
Yeah.
job, Mo. Yeah, he's gonna get fouled so much. It's gonna be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I think
Um,
he drew 5 fouls in 10 minutes or something like that.
and it was probably more. It's just hard to get the whistle when you're up so
I
much at
know.
home
And then
against.
he had an assist to a cutting Townsend who got fouled and then he missed the
Mm,
free throws. But he is just like I said a couple weeks ago, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be a little like less fluid than we like. But when he's in there, it's just going to chip away at
he's
people.
such
So
yeah.
many fouls.
He's so imposing. It's great. All right, I know you got to run.
I got to run. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, everybody.
Bear down, everybody, and we'll see you next week after Old Dominion.
After Old Dominion.